allow me to introduce the Revinate team. We have Lyndon and Mason joining us today, but Lyndon, who is the product marketing manager for Revinate, just if you could introduce yourself, sort of explain to the people what you do and explain to people what Revinate is.
Thank you for having me, Blair, and it's lovely to connect with you all today. I myself, I was born and raised in Australia. I've lived in the US for quite some time, so I'm always really excited to be able to talk with my fellow Australian audience. I've been at Revinate for about 12 years now. I started when we were a really small company, just doing online review management. So it's been really lovely to grow with the company and kind of see our product develop. And I've been in a lot of customer facing roles through that time. And now more recently, I have joined our product marketing team. So I get to talk with our partners like Newbook, and also, talk about internally how we position ourselves, looking at our new functionality, how we're rolling that out and impacting our clients. And just a bit of a background on, Revinate, what we do, who we are. We are a hospitality technology platform. And, we've really been designed to help our clients connect directly with their guests at every touch point during their sort of journey to deliver delightful experiences that ultimately drive more direct revenue. And a really central component of our platform is all centered around guest data. So, we always say when you know your guests, their stay history and preferences, all of that information, you can communicate and build an experience that connects them with your property and your brand, delights them during their stay, drives loyalty, and ultimately that leads to more direct bookings. But guest data is quite complex. So our platform leverages what we call graph technology to really bring together all of the data points from often many times different sources and touch points. And we'll sort of collect and cleanse and deduplicate that to organize what we refer to as a rich guest profile for each guest. And so that's a really actionable, lovely 360-degree view of each guest. And that enables our clients to make faster and smarter decisions about how to deliver those really tailored experiences. And so sort of on top of this, this guest database application, we've got multiple activation channels. And that would include reservation sales, sort of voice, email marketing. We have an AI-driven text messaging solution that can be helpful during a guest stay. And then also guest feedback, which is kind of where we started. So that would be your post-stay surveys and online review management. So that's sort of Revinate at a high level.
Excellent, excellent. So with that little frame up and under the way, just want to, I suppose, in general terms, we talk about guest data and segmentation. Are there often like some key metrics or key bits of information that you see are regularly, I suppose, overlooked and not used where they could actually be used really well for that sort of higher level of personalization? Are there some tricks people miss, I suppose?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, generally we should know the basics of a guest's current or planned stay. But what can be tricky without the right technology is of understanding more about who that guest is. So their preferences, their stay history, their previous guest satisfaction, how was their experience the last time they stayed. Knowing more beyond just that stay at hand can be really powerful. And this allows us to customize our communication and acknowledge guests in a more personalized way. We're in hospitality. That personalized experiences is hugely important. So that hyper-targeted communication, from our data really shows much stronger engagement and ultimately drives more revenue. But, on that point, Blair, I did want to highlight some top performing segments that we see on guest data attributes that may often be overlooked, that do show strong performance. One is geolocation. And so this is really powerful, that allows you to target your guests based on their postal code or location. So that really means you can target local, domestic, and international travelers in a different way. Localized campaigns, such as like last minute staycation offers, these can be really effective in driving engagement and direct bookings if you've got some sort of last minute openings. And our Revinate marketing customers have really succeeded, particularly by including the city or region in the subject line of these location-specific offers. So that's sort of one thing to think about. The second one is all of the guest demographics. So if you can segment by attributes like gender, birthday, families, couples, the reason they're traveling. For example, a family, they might receive an email with a kid-friendly activities and imagery, but that's not really going to hit for a couple that's on a romantic or an adventurous camping trip. So they might receive an email offering something different, champagne, s'mores, or some sort of adventurous experience that's more relevant to them. And then lastly, loyalty is a big topic in hospitality. And this is one where if you can at least segment by their lifetime spend with you or the total nights they've stayed, this is just a nice way to identify your most loyal guests and to send them relevant offers that, acknowledge their loyalty and keep them returning.
Excellent. So with a couple of those taken into mind, the idea behind Revinate is to obviously use that data to segment off and get better levels of guest engagement. For the people on the call, what is an example of a real world, I suppose, example where you have been able to sort of maximize that and how it's transformed their business?
Yeah, we've got plenty of lovely case studies that are available on our website, but I did have one that's very relevant to our conversation today and your audience. So we did have one group that saw a huge demand for outdoor adventure and park visits following COVID. But with that demand, they experienced a much more competitive landscape. So they really needed to stand out from the competition, tell that unique story for each of their locations, and then build an audience of loyal guests. So this group, they replaced their former CRM with Revinate Marketing, and that allowed them to have a single view of their guest data and, as we've sort of already talked about, better segment and market to their guests. And for them, data accuracy was really important. And so they really liked the fact that we had this sort of profile synthesis technology that would remove duplicate records and merge profiles. So they felt that their data was clean and trustworthy. So with all of that data in one central system, their marketing team now felt like they could get creative with segmentation. One particularly successful campaign used a limited time subject line with messaging like last chance for rare dates. And then they also used that geolocation feature that I was just talking about to sort of isolate those guests that were in the drive to market for a given property. And so that email particularly performed really well. It achieved a 45% open rate and a 5% click-through rate. We have a lot of other sort of email-related benchmark data on our website if you're sort of newer to all of these metrics as well. They also used automation features to engage with the right audience at the right time. So they had automated pre-arrival emails that were sent 10 and 30 days from check-in to provide information and pre-trip planning advice, as well as upsells. So they're now seeing an average of 213,000 Australian dollars being generated and attributed to each of their marketing campaigns, which is pretty remarkable. And so, with all of this, Revinate, I guess, has really helped them to just kind of rethink their data strategy and making a concerted effort on capturing guest data and additional data that then they can use to sort of power that segmentation engine, I guess you'd say.
Awesome. So even like one of the main reasons people look to do the segmentation is to drive direct bookings, right? It's all about driving direct bookings. Look, OTAs are sort of always omnipresent. Do we use them for marketing? Do we kind of get sick of paying their commissions? People are a little bit torn about that. As I'm saying, main point of this is to drive sort of direct bookings. Do you have any, like, I suppose, quick actionable tips that people can use the data to sort of maximize their direct bookings over any other source that they might get them from?
Yeah, I mean that, direct bookings, that's like a huge selling point of our platform. That's what we talk about day in and day out at Revinate is how can we help hotels to drive more direct revenue. So, in today's world, travelers definitely expect personalized service and memorable experiences that are tailored to their preferences. So this is really where your guest-centric strategies come in. In fact, 7 out of 10 consumers, they are more likely to buy from brands that recognize them by name, know their past purchase history, can sort of make relevant recommendations. And so the more that you know about your guests, the more that you can encourage them to book direct. I found, one study important, it showed that 90% of hospitality providers, they see that guests who do book direct, 90% are more likely to return than third-party customers. So there's huge value there. And it all really starts by creating that robust profile for each guest and having that in your guest database. So the profile should include historical and upcoming stay information, those demographic data points, guest preferences, perhaps for a specific campsite or amenity. Also, preferred communication methods and any special needs or requests. And so, the customer experience, that's such a crucial aspect of hospitality as it directly impacts and affects the satisfaction and loyalty of your guests. So really look at like how can your staff members utilize this guest profile data to deliver personalized service through the guest stay. When they arrive at the campground or RV park, they begin to kind of form impressions about, the quality of service and their overall experience. So any way that you can use that guest data to provide personalized service, recognize your loyal guests, and improve your service offerings, that will enhance the guest experience. And it all sort of comes together like this guest-centric approach prioritizes the needs and expectations of customers and ultimately really allows you to connect them and drive more direct bookings in the future.
So when we are engaging with the guests, we talk about, well, text messages, how we get a cut-through rate. We talk about that a lot at Newbook, but ultimately a lot of the heavy lifting is done via EDMs, out via email campaigns and things like that. In general terms, couple of tips for a well-crafted email, or just little actionable tips that people could take with them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to consider when you're building out your email, like between like deliverability and what the email's looking like and your content. So it's hard to nail down 3 tips. We have a lot of great strategies. While I'll talk you through a few now, I would encourage you, I think we'll link to this at the end of the webinar, but we have a really great email marketing guide that's got a bunch of additional strategies that you can implement. Just a couple of additional interesting data points that sort of go back to personalization. We're seeing 75% of consumers are highly dissatisfied with impersonal emails, and 34% of internet users don't even read or delete brand emails half the time. So, this is really showing you that the more of like your broadly messaged emails that go to everyone, one blast to everyone, it's just going to drive guests further away from your brand. So before you're even crafting your emails, look at your data and consider the types of segments that you can create. So instead of sending that one email blast to everyone, how can you break out your database into a few more smaller targeted segments and then really tailor the email content to those audiences. So, it's important to know not only who your guests are, but what they're interested in so that you can tailor that message accordingly. Pardon me. We also really want to use imagery that speaks to those segments. So if you're sending an email to a family, you want to use imagery that speaks to them. It's also, we always encourage our customers to use what's called merge tags. So that pre-populates based on underlying data from your database. So you could use your guest name, their stay dates, any of that other information to kind of populate throughout the email. Think about different types of pre-arrival emails that might present upgrade and amenity offers that are really sort of targeted to guest interests. Another little helpful tip to increase the value of those one-time campaigns that you just kind of send them and done is consider resending the same or similar message to a segment of your audience that didn't open the initial email, or even those that opened it but didn't click. And we would suggest to send that 3 to 5 days after the original campaign. And lastly is we would encourage you to just create some sort of basic email marketing campaign calendar. I alluded to this earlier, but deliverability is one really important thing with emails is you want to actually make sure that your emails are landing in the inbox. So consistency and frequency of emails plays a huge role in deliverability. So you can kind of map that out. Secondly, a calendar just makes sure that your campaigns, you're sort of strategically executing them according to major events and other demand generators. And it just also makes sure that, everyone on your team is on the same page. We're not sending too many emails to the same people at the same time. So we can sort of just space things out and visually kind of see what we're sending and when.
You've probably covered this a little bit, but while we're on the tips, we'll sort of go into there. So for people who are just, I suppose, if you think about starting their personalization journey and want to dip the toe in, what are some good low effort, great bang for buck, hey, just make these little changes and you should see a quick win there. Any sort of tips around those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely hope that, there are some really good actionable takeaways from today that you can sort of go back and, make some changes right away. It obviously depends on what guest data is in your email marketing platform or kind of the systems that you're using to kind of leverage in your marketing efforts. I think we could agree that a personalized welcome goes a long way. So consider pre-arrival and welcome messages that specifically acknowledge repeat guests, and then those separately who haven't been to your location. So perhaps some additional content that would help new customers and guests get acquainted with your property and amenities. For someone who's stayed with you before, that content might be a little bit more highlighting some new amenities or things that have changed since their last stay that they could take advantage of. So, as part of your efforts to drive loyalty and recognition, just consider also complimentary amenities to enhance the stay and increase the satisfaction of those loyal customers. We also really highly value guest feedback collection. So understand what your guests have to say about their experience. So include a Net Promoter Score in your survey after their stay. And that will allow you to identify your promoters and then also your detractors in future communication. So those that had a very positive experience, let's make sure that we are including them. And perhaps those detractors, we would want to, in some cases, exclude them from certain communication. And then lastly, craft your content based on guest preferences and any key stay attributes that you've kind of got in your system. So are they traveling with kids? Are they repeat guests? When did they last stay? What was the reason for their stay? Did they have any special, anniversary or birthday trip or, boys camping, adventure, anything that can help you craft that communication and the proximity to your location. So all sort of, again, going back to what data that you might have available that you can just kind of use to spice up your content and personalize it as much as possible.
Excellent. So I think we'll take sort of the opportunity now, we've sort of spoken about all these things you can do, and actually take a look. So if you just want to take control and share your screen and just run us through a little high-level demonstration of Revinate and what the dashboard looks like.
Absolutely. Okay, I think I'll just need you to share. Allow me to share.
Oh, that one's not coming through, but bear with me a second. Okay, if you try again, it should come through, hopefully.
Okay, good to go. Yeah. Okay, you can see my screen?
If we can get, yes, we got a thumbs up there. We're good to go.
That's great. Okay, well, welcome to Revinate. What I'm going to do is firstly give you a really brief overview of our guest application, and this is where we're storing the guest data. We can look at a rich guest profile and have a quick peek at how we would build those segments. And then I'll jump into our email marketing platform and show you the flow to create an email. So this is just our dashboard landing page. But we can jump in to look at our guests. So we can easily kind of search through to pull up a guest. And then let me just show you what that rich guest profile would look like. Again, we can ingest data from multiple sources. So and also deduplicate and merge profiles. So if we are able to connect data from multiple reservations and identify that it's the same person, that all will combine into the one profile, which helps a lot with your marketing efforts. So this is just the basic profile with their contact and personal information. And then we can move through to look at reservations, maybe not only those that were a stay, but if they dined at a restaurant, a golf course, a spa. We can go into their preferences. In our platform, you would have the functionality to build a guest preference questionnaire to gather that data. Feedback would be from your post-stay surveys where we could identify if they were a promoter. We've got engagement to see what other email communication have they received. Some other additional information here. And then let's just jump over to our segment builder. So you'll be able to see all of the segments that have been created in your account. We'll just create a segment right now, and I'll just show you kind of what that looks like. Let's say we want to look at local guests, so in that sort of drive market who live in a close proximity, who perhaps have already stayed at your property. So we'll go to the profile attributes, and let's say location is within 200 kilometers. Let's say we also want to look at customers that have also had a stay in the last year. So we'll apply that. So this is sort of one segmentation block. We could have another set of criteria with an or statement. And then we also have functionality to exclude profiles as well. So one example I had previously was perhaps we don't want to include anyone who's been a detractor on a survey. So we'll just include that there, and then we can sort of start to see how many profiles do we have, how many are reachable by email, and we could use this to apply it to an email marketing campaign that we want to build. So now we'll see that we've got our campaign here. We can also build loyalty tiers, and this uses very similar functionality to that segment builder when you can build loyalty tiers using all of those same attributes. And we can customize the name of the loyalty tiers, the color, the icons, that would all just be something that would display internally. But it's a nice visual way to quickly recognize your customers based on these loyalty tiers you've created. And you can create these loyalty tiers with a defined qualifying period of time based on these options. So we'll jump over to our email marketing platform.
And so just as you have a quick little break there, we just like to point out that because the systems are integrated, all of that raw data, you're not having to cut and paste it across or import or export. It's just drawing that sort of live and in real time from your Newbook system. So there's not that double copy of data that you have to worry about or a manual process there.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And it's like goodbye Excel spreadsheets and importing, exporting, filtering, it's all just automated. And then you can build your segments dynamically within the platform, which is quite nice. And then our email marketing platform is, really easy to use. You can create one-time campaigns or automated campaigns that would trigger to send on a certain attribute of a reservation or some other important detail. So we'll just go and create a campaign. Let's say we want to create a newsletter for a weekend getaway promotion. We'll just kind of work through the different settings. We've got a whole bunch of different templates that you could choose from. You can build out your own templates or start from scratch. And it's a really easy drag and drop content builder. You can drag these over and then customize the content as needed. And it's all just built right in front of you live, so you can see everything as you would like it to look. We're going to be adding some AI within the content builder shortly too, which is an exciting enhancement that should sort of help our customers to be just that more efficient with their marketing content. And here there's just additional functionality in terms of how you want to format various components of the email. So super easy to use, user-friendly campaign builder. You'll be able to see how it renders on desktop as well as mobile. So, definitely a lot of people are looking at emails on their phone now. So you just want to be able to make sure everything's going to look well. And we can test it out on specific email software as well. Send a test to yourself. And then we get to the point where we can select any of those pre-built segments, or we could create a new one from here as well. And then importantly, when you are looking at your campaigns, it's helpful to be able to look at which campaigns performed well, which ones drove room revenue. So which ones actually, we can attribute bookings to emails. So if someone received an email and then booked, we can start to understand which of those campaigns are generating revenue and good engagement rates. And you just kind of keep going back, looking at what's working, what's not, and then sort of build and iterate on your campaign strategy from there. That's just a very, very high level overview of Revinate. Lots more functionality and ways to customize your account. And if you'd like to get more information, we can certainly connect you with someone from our sales team to dive a little bit deeper as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sort of running us through there. I have noticed a couple of little alerts popping up on my screen for some questions. I will get to them at the end when we sort of roll that up. We're not that sort of far away. Hopefully you can all see my screen again now as we go through. So just a couple of little things. You can scan the QR code here. We've got some resources. As I said, this will all be made available afterwards, but feel free to access the QR code from there and go through. Really, when trying to summarize, the segmentation and the guest data, we're driving and businesses are all talking about making data-driven decisions. We actually want to know what we're talking about. We don't want to guess. We don't want to go off gut feel, and make far more accurate, intelligent decisions. If there was only three things, and we do a lot of this here in these webinars, three things for people to take away from this webinar, what would they be?
Yes, I bet you could even guess what I'm gonna say. One is just the importance of segmentation, not just kind of sending the same email to everyone in your database. Sort of understand your guest data and look at how can I segment my guests in a more targeted way and then customize my communication based on those segments. And then personalize, 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 use your merge tags. Pardon me, think about beautiful imagery that speaks to your guests in every way possible. So how can you personalize your communication? And then also it's never too late to start looking at your data and then building on your data in your database. So what other types of information and data are you able to collect about your guests to sort of build out your database? And then you can really sort of start to play around with your segments, play around with your content, look at what resonates, and then, you iterate on that.
Excellent. So I'd like for you all to take this opportunity. If you do have any questions, certainly pop them in the chat, and we'll go through them now. If you're a little bit gun shy and you wanted to ask something in front of everyone, that is fine. Please reach out to us via email, to myself, to Bridget, to Lyndon. Any of the email addresses you have, reach out to us and we'll certainly address them sort of separately. But let me just run through other questions. So Debbie originally spoke, and it's more of a new book centric one, about the issue of, well, if you make bunch of geolocation fields mandatory, some countries can't fill that in. If we remove that mandatory, people won't fill it in. So Debbie, I will give you a call. We do have customers that have this sort of challenge. The more restrictive you make some, obviously the less big bookings you get, but the less restrictive, the less data you get. There are a couple of ways sort of around this post-stay, and there's also some data cleansing tools. So I'll probably just reach out to you and sort of run through what we find some of our larger customers and chains do as far as best practice to try and sort of solve this issue. It is a challenging one for everyone, where you got to find that line between restricting data fields versus opening them up. And, especially when you're looking at Southeast Asia and the South Pacific, a lot of people just don't do postcodes at all, or they don't do suburbs because they're smaller country and all these sorts of things. So we'll sort of, we can touch on ways we can adjust around that outside of the initial booking process. From Sabrina, we have, is the data two-way? Now, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's just a one-way connection where all the new book data gets pushed out to Revinate. I don't believe anything comes back. I'm not sure if you can clarify that.
Yeah, so currently the way that we integrate with our PMS partners like Newbook is that it's one way. So we get the data and then we're able to sort of perform that profile synthesis to merge and deduplicate. That being said, we are looking at some type of two-way functionality, but it's very important that for us that the PMS remains the source of truth for all of that reservation data. But something that is kind of on the horizon is looking at, are there ways we can potentially, integrate some sort of like pop-up module or like Revinate fields that would display back in the PMS that would display and allow you to see some of that enriched data that has come from Revinate. So right now it's one way, but that is something that we're kind of looking at as, a future horizon type of feature.
And the next question from Sabrina, which is excellent. Actually, so we have a number of parks who have what we call multiple instances, multiple copies of Newbook, and it says, how does data sharing work when we have multiple instances? Now, I suppose there's two. We have multiple instances where they're all individual and they would be multiple API connections. So if we can address that, the other, sometimes we have organizations that will have a shared guest database, which I think that one's pretty simple. You just connect to the enterprise and bring the data in from there and look enterprise wide. But how does that view look like when you have that multiple property set up from a Revinate side of things?
Yeah, so with our sort of hierarchy, there are property accounts where you would sort of map that to a campground or a site, and then multiple properties could be connected to a group account. And then the group account would have a roll up of all of the data from those properties. And then there could be, there's functionality within the group account where you can market to, you know, all of those contacts, subsets of different properties. So it's that more sort of group level functionality.
Again, just I suppose another way to segment
Yeah,
those guests. Is it by property, or are we advertising from the brand level and things along those lines?
exactly. Yep, you got it.
There we go. Look, we are coming up close to time. If there's any questions now, please just pop them in as we go through. As I said, please feel free to reach out outside of this if you do have any follow-up queries or questions. But Lyndon, really appreciate you coming on today and doing the webinar. For everyone out there, we really appreciate you turning up. You know, just got through the Australia Day rush and everyone's back to school this week. I know it's a bit of a tough time, but we appreciate you all for turning up. Sabrina, we will make sure we put Lyndon in contact with you or one of her team, and then get that going for you. Not a problem at all. Appreciate all your time today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.